Hello, world. How are you? My name is James Jeffries. Let's read the Bible. Today, we're going to do Genesis chapters 30, 31, and 32. And this is some really good stuff. We're going to learn about. So, yesterday we learned about the first 4 tribes of Israel. Today, we're going to learn about the rest of the tribes of Israel. We're going to see Jacob get his increase. We're going to watch him run from his uncle Laban. We're going to watch how Laban pursued him. We're going to see Jacob come to the place where he is finally ready to go back and confront his brother and meet with his brother Esau and apologize to him for stealing his blessing. And then the most magnificent thing is going to happen at all. Jacob's going to wrestle with God, and it's going to be incredible. So let's go ahead and say a quick prayer first, and make sure that God knows that we're going to be talking about him. So, Heavenly Father, I thank you so much for all the wonderful blessings that you've given me in my life, and also for the hardships, and for everything that's happened to me that has brought me to this place where I can do this. Lord, I hope that as your word goes out, it's going to touch the hearts and lives of the people who hear this today. Just give me the right words to put the right message out there, Lord. And as people hear it, give them a heart and an ear to receive it and help them to understand what you want them to know about this message today. We're so grateful, and we thank you so much for loving us and for even considering us, God. In Jesus' name, amen. All right. Chapter 30, let's read the Bible. When Rachel saw that she was not bearing Jacob any children, she became jealous of her sister. So she said to Jacob, "Give me children or I'll die." Jacob became angry with her, and he said, "Am I in the place of God who has kept you from having children?" Then she said, "Here is Bilhah, my maidservant. Sleep with her so that she can bear children for me, and that through her I might build a family." Now, doesn't this bear a striking resemblance to what Abraham's wife told him? And this is how we got, the Arabs and the Jews, Ishmael and Jacob, or Ishmael and Isaac. Same thing. It keeps going back to the sins of the father that can be passed down through generations, generational curses. This is a big deal. Don't miss that. So she gave him her servant Bilhah as a wife, and Jacob slept with her, and she became pregnant and bore him a son. Then Rachel said, "God has vindicated me, and he has listened to my plea and given me a son." And because of this, she named him Dan. And this is not something that you should miss. In all of the genealogies later throughout the Bible, Dan is the tribe that is omitted. Like in the book of Revelation, when all of the tribes are being mentioned in Israel, Dan is omitted. Dan gets the backhand of God. Okay? And it's because of the way Dan came about. Rachel's servant Bilhah conceived again and bore Jacob a second son. Then Rachel said, "I have a great struggle with my sister, and I have won," and she named him Naphtali, which means my struggle. When Leah saw that she had stopped having children, she took her maidservant Zilpah and gave her to Jacob as a wife. Leah's servant Zilpah bore Jacob a son. Then Leah said, "What good fortune!" And she named him Gad. Now, Gad means good fortune or a troop. Leah's servant Zilpah bore Jacob a second son also. Then Leah said, "How happy I am, and the women will call me happy." So she named him Asher, which means happy. Now during the wheat harvest, Reuben went out into the fields and found some mandrake plants, which he then brought to his mother Leah. Rachel said to Leah, "Please give me some of your son's mandrakes." But she said to her, "Wasn't it enough that you took away my husband? Will you take my son's mandrakes as well?" "Very well," Rachel said. "He can sleep with you tonight in return for your son's mandrakes." There's a rub going on here, and it's going to carry on down through the generations, okay? So when Jacob came in from the fields that evening, Leah went out to meet him. "You must sleep with me," she said. "I have hired you with my son's mandrakes." So he slept with her that night. God listened to Leah, and she became pregnant and bore Jacob a fifth son. Then Leah said, "God has rewarded me for giving my maidservant to my husband." So she named him Issachar, and Issachar means reward. Leah conceived again and bore Jacob a sixth son. Then Leah said, "God has presented me with a precious gift. This time my husband will treat me with honor, because I have borne to him 6 sons." So she named him Zebulon. And it says down here that Zebulon means honor. Sometime later she gave birth to a daughter and named her Dinah. Then God remembered Rachel. He listened to her and he opened her womb. She became pregnant and gave birth to a son and said, "God has taken away my disgrace." She named him Joseph, which means he adds. "May the Lord add to me another son," she said. Now, after Rachel gave birth to Joseph, Jacob said to Laban, "Send me on my way so that I may go back to my homeland. Give me my wives and my children for whom I have served you, and I shall be on my way. You know how much work I have done for you." But Laban said to him, "If I have found favor in your eyes, please stay. I have learned by divination that the Lord has blessed me because of you." He added, "Name your wages, and I will pay them." Jacob said to him, "You know how I have worked for you, and how your livestock has fared under my care. The little you had before I came has increased greatly, and the Lord has blessed you wherever I have been. But now, when may I do something for my own household?" "What shall I give to you?" he asked. "Don't give me anything," Jacob replied. "But if you will do this thing for me, I will go on tending your flocks and watching over them. Let me go through all of your flocks today and remove from them every speckled or spotted sheep, every dark-colored lamb, every spotted and speckled goat. They shall be my wages. And my honesty will testify for me in the future. Whenever you check on the wages you have paid me, any goat in my possession that is not speckled or spotted, or any lamb that is not dark-colored, will be considered stolen." "Agreed," said Laban. "Let it be to you as you have said." That same day he removed all of the male goats that were streaked or spotted, and all the speckled or spotted female goats, all that had white on them, and all of the dark-colored lambs, and he placed them in the care of his sons. Then he put a 3-day journey between himself and Jacob, while Jacob continued to tend the rest of Laban's flocks. However, Jacob took fresh-cut branches from poplar, almond, and plane trees and made white stripes on them by peeling the bark and exposing the white inner wood of the branches. Then he placed the peeled branches in all of the watering troughs so that they would be directly in front of the flocks when they came to drink. When the flocks were in heat and came to drink, they matted in front of the branches, and so they bore young that were all streaked and speckled or spotted. Jacob set apart the young of the flock by themselves, but made the rest face the streaked and dark-colored animals that belonged to Laban. Thus he had made separate flocks for himself and did not put them with Laban's animals. So here again we see Jacob, he's such a trickster. Whenever the stronger females were in heat, Jacob would place the branches in the troughs in front of the animals so that they would mate near the branches. But if the animals were weak, he would not place them there. So he's making sure that he is getting the best of all of the flocks. Excuse me, I'm getting messages from people there. But if the animals were weak, he would not place them there. So the weak animals went to Laban, and the strong ones went to Jacob. In this way, the man grew exceedingly prosperous and came to own large flocks and maidservants and men servants and camels and donkeys. So Jacob, he just never can change his ways. Right from the day of his birth, he's a trickster. He is cunning and deceitful. And we're going to see what happens with that here in just a second. Chapter 31. Jacob heard that Laban's sons were saying, Jacob has taken everything our father owned and has gained all of this wealth and from what belonged to our father. And Jacob noticed that Laban's attitude toward him was not the way it had been. Then the Lord said to Jacob, go back to the land of your fathers and to your relatives, and I will be with you. So Jacob sent word to Rachel and Leah to come out of the fields where his flocks were. He said to them, I see that your father's attitude towards me is not as it was before. But the God of my father has been with me. You know that I've worked for your father with all of my strength, yet your father has cheated me by changing my wages 10 times. However, God has not allowed him to harm me. If he said, the speckled ones will be your wages, then all the flocks gave birth to speckled young. And if he said, the streaked ones will be your wages, then all the flocks bore streaked young. So God has taken away your father's livestock and has given them to me. But what he doesn't mention is that he had a little hand in that. Such a tricky guy. In breeding season, I once had a dream in which I looked up and saw the male goats mating with the flock were streaked. Saw that the male goats mating with the flock were streaked, speckled, and spotted. The angel of God said to me in the dream, Jacob. I answered, here I am. And he said, look up and see that all of the male goats mating with the flock are streaked, speckled, or spotted. For I have seen all that Laban has been doing to you. I am the God of Bethel, where you anointed a pillar, and where you made a vow to me. Now leave this land at once and go back to your native land. Then Rachel and Leah replied, do we still have any share of the inheritance of our father's estate? Does he not regard us as foreigners? Not only has he sold us, but he has used up what was paid for us. Surely all of the wealth that God took away from our father belongs to us and our children, so do whatever God has told you. Then Jacob put his children and his wives on camels. He drove all of his livestock ahead of them, along with the goods that he had accumulated in Padan Aram, to go to his father Isaac in the land of Canaan. When Laban had gone to shear his sheep, Rachel stole her father's household gods. So the idols that he kept in his house, he was an idolater, so she took all of them. Moreover, Jacob deceived Laban the Aramean by not telling him that he was running away. So he fled with all that he had, crossing the river, and he headed for the hill country of Gilead. On the third day, Laban was told that Jacob had fled, taking his relatives with him. He pursued Jacob for 7 days and caught up with him in the hill country of Gilead. Then God came to Laban the Aramean in a dream and said to him, be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad. Jacob had pitched his tent in the hill country of Gilead, and Laban overtook him, and Laban and his relatives camped there too. Then Laban said to Jacob, what have you done? You deceived me, and you've carried off my daughters like captives in war. Why did you run off secretly and deceive me? Why didn't you tell me, so I could send you away with joy and singing to the music of tambourines and harps? You didn't even let me kiss my grandchildren or my daughters goodbye. You have done a foolish thing. I have the power to harm you, but last night the God of your father said to me, be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad. Now because you have gone off, because you long to return to your father's house, but why did you steal my gods? Jacob answered Laban, I was afraid, because I thought you would take your daughters away from me by force. But if you find anyone who has your gods, he shall not live. In the presence of our relatives, see for yourself whether there is anything of yours here with me, and if so, take it. Now Jacob did not know that Rachel had stolen the gods. So Laban went into Jacob's tent and into Leah's tent and into the tent of the two maidservants, and he found nothing. After he came out of Leah's tent, he entered Rachel's tent. Now Rachel had taken the household gods and put them inside of her camel's saddle and was sitting on them. Laban searched through everything in the tent, but he found nothing. Rachel said to her father, "Don't be angry at me, my lord, that I cannot stand up in your presence. I'm having my period." So he searched but could not find the household goods. So she... horrible. Jacob was angry and took Laban to task. "What is my crime?" he asked Laban. "What sin have I committed that you hunt me down so? Now that you have searched through all my goods and have found that belongs to your household, put it here in front of your relatives and mine and let them judge between the two of us. I have been with you for 20 years now. Your sheep and goats have not miscarried, nor have I eaten rams from your flocks. I did not bring you animals torn by wild beasts. I bore the loss myself, and you demanded payment from me for whatever was stolen by day or night. This was my situation. The heat consumed me in the daytime and the cold at night, and the sheep fled from my eyes. It was like this for the 20 years that I was in your household. I worked for you 14 years for your 2 daughters and 6 years for your flocks, and you changed my wages 10 times. If the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac had not been with me, you would surely have sent me away empty-handed. But God has seen my hardship and the toil of my hands last night, and he rebuked you." Laban answered to Jacob. Laban answered Jacob, "The women are my daughters, the children are my children, and the flocks are my flocks. All that you see is mine. Yet what can I do about these daughters of mine, or about the children that they have borne? Come now, let us make a covenant, you and I, and let it serve as a witness between the two of us." So Jacob took a stone and set it up as a pillar. He said to his relatives, "Gather some stones." So they took stones and piled them in a heap, and they ate there by the heap. Laban called it Yeger Sahudatha, and Jacob called it Gilead, which means heap. Okay? Laban said, "This heap is a witness between you and me today. That is why it is called Gilead. It was also called Mizpah, because he said, 'May the Lord keep watch between you and me when we are away from each other. If you mistreat my daughters or take any wives besides my daughters, even though no one is with us, remember that God is a witness between you and me.'" Laban also said to Jacob, "Here is this heap and this pillar that I have set up between you and me. This heap is a witness and this pillar is a witness that I will not go past this heap on your side to harm you, and that you will not go past this heap and pillar on my side to harm me. May the God of Abraham, the God of Nahor, the God of their father, judge between us." So Jacob took an oath in the name of the fear of his father Isaac. He offered a sacrifice there in the hill country and invited his relatives to a meal. After they had eaten, they spent the night there. Early in the morning, Laban kissed his grandchildren and his daughters and blessed them, and he left and returned home. And now we're in chapter 32. Jacob went also on his way, and the angels of God met him. When Jacob saw them, he said, "This is the camp of God." And so he named that place Mahanaim, which means it means two camps. So Jacob sent messengers ahead of him to his brother Esau in the land of Seir, the country of Edom. He instructed them, This is what you are to say to my master Esau." It's funny how his attitude towards his brother has changed after all this time. When he left his brother, it was out of fear of his life, and he knew that he had done his brother wrong, and now he's calling his brother his master. "This is what you were to say to my master Esau. Your servant Jacob says, I have been staying with Laban and have remained there until now. I have cattle and donkeys, sheep and goats, men servants and maid servants. Now I am sending this message to my lord, that I may find favor in your eyes." When the messengers returned to Jacob, they said, "We went to your brother Esau, and now he is coming to meet you, and 400 men are coming with him." In great fear and distress, Jacob divided the people who were with him into two groups, and the flocks and herds and camels as well. He thought, if Esau comes and attacks one group, the group that is left may still escape. Then Jacob prayed, "O God of my father Abraham, God of my father Isaac, O Lord, who said to me, 'Go back to your country and your relatives, and I will make you prosper.' I am unworthy of all of the kindness and faithfulness that you have shown your servant. I have only my staff when I cross this river Jordan, and now I have become two groups. Save me, I pray, from the hand of my brother Esau, for I am afraid he will come and attack me, but also the mothers with their children. But you have said, 'I will surely make you prosper and will make your descendants like the sand of the sea, which cannot be counted.'" And he spent the night there, and from what he had with him, he selected a gift for his brother Esau: 200 female goats, 20 male goats, 200 ewes and 20 rams, 30 female camels with their young, 40 cows and 10 bulls, 20 female donkeys and 10 male donkeys. He put them in the care of his servants, each herd by itself, and said to his servants, "Go ahead of me and keep some space between the herds." That's a kingly gift, by the way. He's shown a great deal of respect here. He instructed the one in the lead, "When my brother Esau meets you and asks, 'To whom do you belong, and where are you going, and who owns all of these animals in front of you?' then you are to say, 'They belong to your servant Jacob. They are a gift sent to my lord Esau, and he is coming behind us.'" He also instructed the second and third and all of the others who followed the herds, "You are to say the same thing to Esau when you meet him. And be sure to say, 'Your servant Jacob is coming behind us.'" For he thought, "I will pacify him with these gifts I am sending on ahead. Later, when I see him, perhaps he will receive me." So Jacob's gifts went on ahead of him, and he spent the night in the camp. So, do you see what he's doing? He's trying to buy his brother off. You know, he knows that he did him wrong, and he's trying to make up for it with worldly gifts. And watch what happens. That night, Jacob got up and took his 2 wives, his 2 maidservants, and his 11 sons, and crossed the ford of the Jabbok. After he had sent them across the stream, he sent over all of his possessions, and so Jacob was alone, and a man wrestled with him until daybreak. When the man saw that he could not overpower him, he touched the socket of Jacob's hip, so that his hip was wrenched as he wrestled with the man. Then the man said, "Let me go, for it is daybreak." But Jacob said, "I will not let you go until you bless me." The man asked him, "What is your name?" "Jacob," he answered. Then the man said, "You shall no longer be called Jacob, but your name is now Israel, because you have struggled with God and the men with..." Then the man said, "Your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel, because you have struggled with God and with men, and you have overcome." Jacob said, "Please tell me your name." But he said, "Why do you ask my name, seeing that it is wonderful?" Then he blessed him there. That place is called Peniel, saying, "It is because I saw God face to face, and yet my life was spared." I want you to understand, this man that Jacob wrestled with was not a man. He was not an angel. This was the pre-incarnate Christ. This is what they call a Christophany. And there are many of them throughout the Old Testament. And every single time that I come to one, I am going to point it out for you. Because God has really blessed me with the ability to spot these and recognize their meaning. This is a huge thing. So don't miss it. Reread it. Read it 10 times. It's going to bless you. Because Jacob said, I will not let you go until you bless me. Most people would think, that's kind of absurd. Look at how many camels and sheep and men and maidservants and children and wives and all of these people that Jacob has. By any stretch of the imagination, Jacob is already blessed. Do you understand? But he recognized who this was, and he said, I am not letting you go until you bless me. The sun rose above him as he passed Peniel, and he was limping because of his hip. Therefore, to this day, the Israelites do not eat the tendon attached to the socket of the hip, because the socket of Jacob's hip was touched near the tendon. And that's the end of our reading for the day. And I hope that you are as blessed hearing this as I was reading it to you. It's impossible for me to read this part of the Bible and not just feel this overwhelming sense of joy that God did such a wonderful thing, and how many people have been blessed because of this thing, and because of Jacob and his unwillingness to let God go. I love you and God loves you. Stick around. Tomorrow I'm going to be reading chapter 33, chapter 34, and chapter 35. Oh yeah, and this is some good stuff too. Yeah, come back tomorrow and we'll read the Bible together some more. Until then, I hope God richly blesses you too. Love you.